Welcome to CosmoFactory, a podcast by Cosmoprof Worldwide Bologna, where we explore the entire cosmetics, personal care, and fragrance industry supply chain. I'm your host, Deanna Utrusky, and here at CosmoFactory, we look beyond the trends to discover the ideas, initiatives, and innovations that are truly advancing beauty. Let's get started. This episode is about eco-design at the multinational brand level. It's about engaging the supply chain, mobilizing distribution networks, and shifting consumer consumption habits. It's about identifying environmental sustainability objectives that are realistic and implementable, as well as about road mapping those commitments. Seated across from me now in the CosmoFactory podcast recording booth at Cosmoprof Worldwide Bologna is Emmanuel Hembert, Global Lead for Cosmetics, Personal Care, and Pharma at Quantis. Welcome, Emmanuel.
Thank you. Well, nice to be here.
Yes. No, I'm so glad to have this chance to speak with you. Now, if you and I had sat down for this conversation 20 years ago, maybe a decade ago, we would have been talking about things like carbon footprints and life cycle assessments. Today, we're thinking about terms more like mitigating climate change. We're thinking about building the circular economy and eco-design. Is this all a matter of semantics? And if not, which I'm hoping it's not, how have corporate environmental sustainability efforts advanced over the past couple of decades or the past single decade, if that's more appropriate?
Yeah, the cosmetics companies had first to start by measuring the impact of their products and their overall activity.
Yes.
So that was the first steps. Then they had to commit according to certain standards and build roadmaps to meet these commitments.
Sure.
And most cosmetics companies have already done that. The third step is to work, in fact, on the activation of this roadmap and really focus on the actions that will help reach these commitments and reduce the impact. And this is where eco-design, for example, enters into, or circularity, start to be topics that companies are dealing with.
Okay, I love that. We are making progress. I like your answer. So if we still, look back over recent years, can you speak to how the beauty industry has made measurable, meaningful change? Do you think we've made a difference in the health of the planet as well?
I think the cosmetics industry has made significant progress over the past decades.
Yeah.
They, for example, did lots of work on what is called the Scope 1, that is to say their own operations, to minimize to the maximum the impact of their own operations. And they have done quite a good job on that. They also moved from pure talking only about climate to talk about nature and take into account the entire set of environmental topics. And as we discussed just before, they have now moved into actions, into the activation of their sustainability strategies, which represent a real progress.
Yeah. No, it's interesting. I feel like I hear you saying that we're not doing damage at the same level we might have been in the past. We're being much more thoughtful as an industry.
Exactly, and this is something the industry feels they need. They need, of course, for to be in line with the expectation of consumers, to also align with the regulation that is that has really toughened over the years,
right.
But also to ensure the long-term resilience of their own business models, because they need also, especially with the trend toward natural cosmetics, they need also to have a state of the environment that is that is as little change as possible to be able to use the natural resources they need.
Yes, lovely. Thank you for that. And the term eco-design has already come up. I think I used it, and I've heard you use it as well. What does eco-design mean for big beauty makers?
Now, eco-design is to look at the environmental impact of your products,
okay,
and to include into the design of your products sustainability criteria, and work towards reducing the impact of your products towards the entire life cycle. That is to say, from the ingredient production through your own manufacturing, through the use phase and the end of life.
Very good. Can you share an example or even a mini case study, and if you're able to share literally from a partner or client that you work with, or if not, just general terms, so that we can sort of understand what this might look like in practice?
Yeah. The company that has widely communicated around the topic, and we worked with them, is L'Oréal.
Okay. I think we've all heard of L'Oréal.
Exactly. And they, like already almost a decade ago, they started to create their own process and system and tool to integrate eco-design into the development of all their products. And what they did, they started to measure the impact of their entire portfolio.
Yes.
And then they put in place, thanks to this tool that the whole company were able to is still able to use, and they put in place around it a governance that makes compulsory for a new product to be less impactful than the previous product.
Right.
So to have a virtuous circle about the sustainability of their products. And nowadays, you talk to anybody at L'Oréal, they know about this system, which is called SPOT, and they, being in marketing, being in product development, being in operations, this is really the tool around which all the company works to ensure greater sustainability of their business.
Yeah. And as you've described it, I'm sure our listeners can already imagine this is like a digital tool, and it sounds like, and maybe you just said, L'Oréal actually created this for themselves. How important is it that a company creates their own tool? I'm imagining, there are many companies, that are sizable enough to do so and very much want sort of in-house proprietary technologies for various applications, and this might be one of them in terms of, safeguarding the data on their products and that sort of thing. But other companies, might hope that there's a third-party option here. What do these tools look like? What are the options?
So until recently, we were advising companies to develop their own tools because there was nothing satisfactory on the market. Over the past 1.5 years, there has been lots of new solutions that have emerged on the market. First, to digital solutions. First, to measure and track the corporate footprint, so the footprint of the whole company. They are now moving to product footprint, and with that, starting to develop eco-design features, so to help companies to develop better and more sustainable products.
Yeah. So it sounds like you're advising your customers or clients to work with these tools and maybe using them in every case. I'm curious, though, still about how companies that work with you are finding and choosing environmental sustainability goals that not only make sense, right? I feel like we can get there with these tools that you're describing, but also goals that are reachable. Where does that process start, and what does sort of an attainable goal? How do you ascertain if a goal is attainable and worth following through on?
Yeah, you need to have like an end-to-end process to do that properly. The first step is to identify the hotspots. So what are the areas, in your company or on the products, the features of the products that are impacting the most the environment. Then out of that, you start to look at the different frameworks that exist in terms of commitment to sustainability. And you choose them according to your priorities and what really you want to gear towards. And out of that, you need to work with the different functions in your company to identify the levers, like the operational levers to reduce the impact. You need to work with product development, with logistics, with procurement, with marketing, so that they help you to identify the levers. It needs to be very practical. And out of that, you are able to create a roadmap and to identify, in fact, your reduction pathway and the gap to target. And when you have the gap to target, then the leadership of the company needs really to look very thoroughly of what are the implications of this gap to target. What do I need to change in the way I operate, in my product portfolio, in the way I interact with my suppliers to reach the gap to target.
Right.
And that's this way that you can have, after that you can have a bigger or smaller stretch, and that's more like the willingness of the company. But you have a goal that is that where you have a pathway to achievement.
Yeah, no, this makes sense. And just because I want to keep learning here, and sometimes comparison actually helps me clarify things in my mind, and maybe it will help some of our listeners as well. But can you share with me what sorts of sustainability goals are not realistic? What might not be implementable? Are there things that you've seen, maybe your clients would love to do this, and you're like, yeah, no, that can't happen?
I think the sustainability goals are not implementable when they are not done through a thorough process. When they are just defined as like an ambition without being based on the operational reality. Some companies do that because they want to shine, or because there is a strong belief sometimes from the CEO, or sometimes it's just to follow the competition. But it's important to have this end-to-end process and do it really to identify the operational levers and the trade-offs you have to make related to your business model.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Thank you. And I know we're speaking in very strategic terms here, but I'm hearing so much, especially from ingredient suppliers, and I know you work more with you do work with ingredient suppliers, and I'll ask you a question about that in a minute, or at least help your clients work with them. But I hear so much about the concept of biodegradability right now. Do you have any notes or thoughts on that in terms of a sustainability goal?
Biodegradability is becoming a big topic, especially because there are regulations coming in Europe.
Right.
The wastewater and wastewater treatment, the directive, sorry. So companies start to be very worried about. What you have also, you have a public media backlash on for example, the PFAS.
Right.
So it's a topic that is at the heart of the discussions, especially in Europe, but there are discussions also in the US, there are discussions in Asia. It's not specific to Europe, and this is why it's becoming more and more important, and companies are looking at it specifically.
Yeah, that's helpful. Thank you for that. As I suggested, we'll think a little bit more about the supply chain and upstream and downstream partners even. The work that Quantis has done has certainly grown to include this, not only your primary clients, but also collaborating with partners in both directions there. Can you tell us how you and then your clients are now working with the cosmetics industry supply chain, with maybe retail distributors, and involving even consumers in this shift to circularity?
So our ambition at Quantis is really to transform the entire industry, so the value chain end to end. So this is why we have been working for quite some time now with ingredient suppliers and also with retailers. It's important that ingredient suppliers and the impact of the cosmetics industry, a large part is what is called the scope 3. That is to say, what is outside of the boundaries of the brand owners, so the suppliers, and it's important to work with them also to help reduce the impact of their ingredients. And they ask us to help them because they know that we know their clients. And working with the retailers, it's also very important because if we want to transform the entire industry, the retailers have a very strong power in terms of becoming a kind of a platform for sustainable products, in terms of criteria they ask from their suppliers, and the way also they communicate about it to the consumers. So we are very engaged with retailers as well on that topic.
Yeah, no, that's so interesting. It's such a big project. I'm curious, hearing your answers so far, if there really is room for new ideas and creativity in terms of solving for industrial or beauty industry sustainability, or has this all become very systematized? We're just running it through a program and everyone's kind of doing the same thing and we've stopped thinking about it.
No, there is constant innovation. The cosmetics industry is quite an innovative industry.
Yes, I would agree.
They renew 25 to 30% of their product portfolio every year, so the rotation of product is quite fast, and therefore they have the ability to bring innovation and sustainable innovation into their portfolio. And you have companies, for example, that are starting from scratch, being sustainable and looking at the most sustainable solutions throughout their value chain, and you have also in terms of the activations of the sustainability strategies. We are still at the stage where there are operational trials. We need to make it work. For example, refill is not an easy topic to deal with, and you need also to make sure that you engage the consumer in a positive way, in a way that is appealing to the consumer to have more sustainable behaviors.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. It's such a large undertaking your company is responsible for. You and I were chatting before the interview started here, and one of the things that's very exciting, about the CosmoFactory podcast, we get to hear great conversations with individuals like yourself, sharing such important ideas, and as you've just said, innovative ideas as well. But we really couldn't do it without our listeners. I want to take a minute to just thank everyone who has been here with us for the past year. We recorded live for the first time at CosmoProf Worldwide Bologna in 2024, and to be back here this year, with a full year's worth of episodes. It's amazing to have a global community of listeners. You may have heard me say already that the CosmoFactory podcast has been downloaded in more than 100 countries around the world, and certainly we don't even have yet 100 episodes. So it's just amazing. I'm really glad each of you listening, is joining us each week for these conversations. I think it's really inspiring to keep our industry connected in this way, and amazing. And Emmanuel, I have to thank you again for your very important work and for sharing your knowledge here today on the CosmoFactory podcast. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and I'm really happy to have had this opportunity. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much for listening. If you find the CosmoFactory podcast useful, please take a moment to leave us a 5-star review and share your thoughts so even more cosmetic industry professionals can discover the CosmoFactory. I'm Deanna Utrusky. Please join me again next Tuesday for a new episode of the CosmoFactory podcast.